My 65th birthday cake sat on the table, candles arranged by habit, not hope. I set 3 extra plates anyway. Me, my son Elliot, my grandson Tommy, because a man can be foolish in private. The clock ticked. The coffee cooled. When the doorbell finally rang, I thought, good. They're late, but they're here. It wasn't them. A man I barely knew stood on my porch with a paper bag and a face that had run out of courage on the drive over. He introduced himself as David. He said my name like it weighed more than he expected. Then he handed me the bag. Inside was a plastic folder. On the top, a lab report with percentages I didn't have the stomach to learn by heart. He said at first, careful like you'd set a glass down on a shaky table, I think Tommy is my son. The cake behind me went out on its own. I asked him inside because that's the only thing I know how to do. Feed a problem, sit it down, and see if it gets smaller. I poured him coffee I'd meant for my family and listened. His story was simple and ugly and didn't try to be anything else. Years ago, before Elliot met his wife Meadow, she and David had a short, messy relationship. It ended badly, the way young things end when they're all heat and no map. Later, Meadow married my son. Tommy was born early in the marriage. David moved away. He tried to forget the timeline that chewed at him. It kept chewing. He told me he'd paid for an at-home DNA test, the private kind, sir, and that the result came back with a number that made it hard to sleep. He said he knew such a test wasn't a courtroom, only a compass. He said he would accept whatever the truth turned out to be, but he couldn't accept not knowing. And why are you telling me? I asked. Why not go straight to Elliot? Because you'll hear me, he said. You'll either throw me out with both hands, or you'll help make this clean. Either way, you won't pretend you didn't hear me. He was right about that. Pretending is the worst kind of noise. I sat there and counted every tick of the kitchen clock between us. Then I told him about the empty plates, the last-minute texts, Meadows so sorry, Tommy's not feeling well, and the photo that pinged my phone 10 minutes later from a mutual friend. My family smiling on a cruise deck. The kind with a drink package and sunsets you can rent. That was 2 days earlier. They hadn't called since. I was past embarrassment. I had reached inventory. You're going to get a court-approved test, I said. Chain of custody, witnessed, no questions that can eat us later. If the compass and the courtroom point the same way, we say the word out loud. Not for drama, for direction. David's shoulders fell with a gratitude that made me want to look away. I'll do whatever it takes. You'll do one more thing, I said. You won't talk to anyone until I put a table between us all. I won't have the truth arriving in fragments and excuses, he agreed. He left. I hid the cake under foil like a failed experiment and made 2 calls. First, a lawyer. Not the kind who loves speeches, the kind who loves procedures. We spoke about petitions and cheek swabs and where evidence spends the night, so it can't wander off. She promised a judge would sign what needed signing if we moved like adults. Second, I called a family mediator whose office smells like tea and compromise. I told her we might need her, soon. She told me to buy a notebook. Write down what you want, she said. Not punishments. Outcomes. I wrote, Tommy deserves the truth. Elliot deserves the truth. I deserve to stop being managed like a hotel booking. Meadow deserves a chance to speak without a mask. If she chooses the mask, I deserve to choose the door. I didn't sleep much that night. The clock had too many hands. In the morning, I drove to Elliot's house unannounced. and sat on the front steps until a neighbor decided I wasn't a threat to property values. Elliot returned from the gym an hour later, surprised and then guilty, and then annoyed, because guilt doesn't like being caught in daylight. "Dad, you can't just show up," he said. "I can when I'm not being invited anywhere else," I answered. "We need to have dinner, all of us. You, Meadow, me, and, listen carefully, David." The name went through him like ice water. He swallowed before he spoke. "Why?" "Because a compass has pointed at your life," I said. "We're going to see if the map agrees." He laughed, but it didn't have any teeth. "Dad, you're being dramatic." Meadow barely dated that guy. She told me. "It was nothing. Nothing doesn't knock on a door with paperwork," I said. "I'm not doing this," he snapped. "Meadow is my wife. Tommy is my son." "All right," I said. "Then do it for that sentence. If it's true, the test is a gift. If it's not, it's a correction. Either way, the thing you love gets stronger because it stops being a story you have to protect and becomes a truth you can hold with both hands." He didn't answer. He went inside. A few minutes later, Meadow came out instead. She was composed the way glass is composed, clear from the front, sharp if you ever pick it up wrong. Meadow has a talent for naming herself the solution while you're still trying to phrase the problem. She took my hands and called me Dad each time she needed the word to mean something different. "Is there an issue?" she asked, which is Meadow for, "We will discuss this my way." "There might be," I said. "A man named David is coming to dinner tonight." Her eyes flicked once, calculation and fear crossing a street together. "Absolutely not," she said, softer than kindness and much colder. "That man is unstable. He harassed me years ago. Elliot knows this." "He also has a lab report," I replied, "and a willingness to do it the right way." "You'll come tonight, or you'll convince me on this porch that you have a better suggestion that doesn't begin with 'ignore the problem.'" She didn't blink. Meadow has a face that can hold a good lie and never spill a drop. "We'll be there," she said at last, each word peeled and dried. After she left, I stood on the lawn and saw my shadow stretch a long, thin promise across the grass. I decided to keep it. Dinner that night was at my house because I needed a table I could calm with my hands. I cooked too much. I chopped too loudly. When the doorbell rang, Elliot and Meadow were early and perfectly dressed for a magazine about successful families. David arrived on time and looked like someone who had borrowed courage he was going to return after. We sat. We passed bread no one ate. I avoided speeches. "Thank you for coming," I said. "I won't accuse anyone or protect anyone. I will ask for one thing. As of tonight, we stop saving face and we start saving time." David slid the private lab report across to Elliot. "I know this isn't official," he said, the words catching. "It's just what made me stop pretending." Elliot didn't touch it. Meadow did. She read like people read contracts they intend to ignore. "This is a joke," she said. "My husband won't be part of this harassment." "Not a joke," I replied. "Also not a verdict. We'll do it properly. The order is signed. Cheek swab, witnessed. Chain of custody. If it clears you, I'll apologize. If it doesn't, you'll apologize. Either way, Tommy won't be a question anymore." Meadow's look said she'd found the flaw she needed. "You think a piece of paper can tear apart a family? How dare you bring this into our home? You brought it," I said quietly. "You brought it the day you decided that managing people was safer than loving them." She laughed then. And if you've never heard a lie laugh at you, it sounds like pity practiced in a mirror. You always wanted control, she said. You couldn't stand that Elliot built a life without you arranging it. I let the chair's wooden edge find the inside of my fingers. If I wanted control, I would have demanded it years ago. Instead, I'm asking for truth. People can live with almost anything except being managed into silence. Elliot cleared his throat. He'd been looking at the houseplants, the ceiling, the window, anywhere the problem wasn't. We'll do the test, he said finally. Let's end this. Meadows' head snapped toward him. I saw a crack open in the idea she had of her marriage. Elliot, she said, low and lethal. He didn't look at her. I'm not arguing with a compass forever. We'll get a map. There was nothing left to decide. We didn't eat. We signed the forms. The next morning, inside a clinic that smells like hand soap and worry, a nurse swabbed the inside of a child's cheek and a man's. She sealed things, labeled things, put them in a place mistakes can't find. She smiled the way nurses smile at storms they see every week. 2 weeks, she said. 2 weeks is a long time when your life is an egg you can't set down. I learned new hobbies, pacing, imagining, inventorying the quiet cruelty of small exclusions. I filled a notebook with dates I'd tried not to take personally. The school pageant where I never received the email. The soccer tournament they forgot to tell me about. The Thanksgiving head count that became 12 at Meadows' sister's house and, we'll swing by, at mine. I made a timeline of the way I had been moved from the center of my family to a polite, foldable edge. It read like a maintenance plan for disappearing someone slowly. Halfway through the waiting, I wrote Meadows' name at the top of a page and then wrote another under it. Margaret. That's her legal name. She prefers Meadow because it promises sunshine and no fences. But names have histories. I called an old friend in county records. I learned dates I already suspected, and one I did not. A brief overlap that turned my stomach. It didn't matter for court. It mattered for honesty. When the results arrived, they arrived like a door you knew was there but still flinched when it opened. The clinic called the lawyer. The lawyer called me. We didn't use percentages in our conversation. She said the words we had been avoiding. Biological father, David. I sat in my car in the clinic parking lot and didn't turn the key. My hands found the wheel like a prayer that doesn't need a God. Then I called the mediator. Tonight, I said. All of us. Are you sure? She asked. I'm old enough to be sure, I said. I set the table again. No cake this time. Water, not wine. Paper copies for everyone because paper forces eyes to meet something. We began with the only sentence that mattered. The official test says David is Tommy's father. Elliot didn't speak. He folded the paper once, twice, and then set it down like you'd set down a picture of someone who didn't make it home. David's face was wet and humble in a way that made me respect him more, not less. Meadow stared at the header of the document, the way a person tries to memorize the shape of an enemy so they can find it in a crowd. It's wrong, she said. The chain of custody is clean, the mediator replied. If there's another explanation, it doesn't live in the lab. Meadow shifted strategies. This is an attack, she said. On me. On my marriage, it's an answer, I said. What we do with it decides whether it's an attack. You planned this, she said to me, the mask slipping into the honest contempt beneath. You've always resented me. You never accepted me. I accepted the person you told us you were, I said. But I won't accept the system you built. You isolated my son from his family. You rerouted information. You turned love into permissions, and you mislabeled control as care. She scoffed. You're being poetic. Fine, I said. Let me be plain. Meadow number. Margaret. Her eyes flashed. You've called the shots by staging every scene, I continued. You chose my absence repeatedly, then marketed it as necessity. Now the facts don't serve you, and suddenly facts are cruel. They aren't. They're just loud. Elliot looked at her then. Really looked. Is it true? He asked, a small voice from a big chest. Did you already suspect? Is that why you shut him out? Meadow tried on 3 answers in silence, then chose the one that blames the weather. I did what was best for us, she said. I kept your father out because he meddles. I kept David out because he's chaos. I kept everyone out because we needed peace. You kept everyone out, Elliot repeated, and called the quiet peace. David wiped his face with a napkin he hadn't touched his mouth with. I don't want to take anything from anyone, he said. I want to give my son my name, my time, my word. I'll accept any arrangement that honors the family he already has. The mediator nodded. Here's what happens next, she said, moving us from speech to road. You'll build a co-parenting plan that starts from Tommy's needs, not adult egos. Elliot, your role changes, but it doesn't vanish. You've been his day-to-day father. David, you enter formally, gradually. Meadow, you agree to a truth you didn't choose. That's the whole job, Meadow shook her head. I won't be shamed in my own family. Shame is the shadow of secrets, I said. Turn on the light and it has nowhere to stand. She turned to Elliot with one last tool. Tears. Honey, she said, voice soft enough to sell a house to a storm. We can fight this. We can challenge the procedure. We can drag it out. Elliot didn't take the bait. No, he said. I'm done living in rooms where the truth can't enter. That was the quiet moment where the furniture in our family moved to its new places. The rest was logistics. Lawyers wrote language that sounds like soft handcuffs. Therapists printed worksheets and taught 2 men how to talk about a child without trying to own him. Tommy learned a new word, bio, and a longer one, both, and discovered that bikes ride the same whether 1 or 2 people are cheering. Meadow, Margaret, packed her oxygen and left, then returned for scheduled days, then left again when she understood schedules apply to everyone. She stopped calling me Dad. I stopped pretending she ever meant it. I did not gloat. I did not win. I survived my own hope and built a better one. Months later, I stood at the edge of a soccer field in a cheap folding chair, the kind that pinches your fingers if you get cocky, and watched a boy who has my stubborn mouth miss a goal by 3 inches. He swore the way Elliot did at 8. David clapped the way I did at 30. Elliot yelled something about defense like defense was a religion. We looked ridiculous and right. After the game, Tommy ran to the fence for water, and I passed the bottle through the diamonds. He caught his breath and looked at the 3 of us. Are you all my dads? He asked, not anxious, just curious about geometry. Sort of, I said. Lucky you. He thought about it and shrugged. Okay, he said. Can we get ice cream? We could. We did. People sometimes ask me if I grieve the family I thought I had. I tell them I grieve the time I spent trying not to notice what was happening to me. Quiet exclusion is artless but effective. It looks like life. It feels like a schedule. You don't notice the door closing because you're the one holding it open. Then someone hands you a test result and a mirror, and you have to decide whether to live politely or honestly. I have fewer plates now. That's not a tragedy. It's a setting. On my 66th birthday, I set 3 again. Me, Elliot, Tommy, and then 2 more because people multiply when you stop hiding the math. David, and a neighbor kid. Tommy insists is his brother for practice. We cut a cake that tasted like ordinary sugar. We argued about whether sprinkles matter. They do. We didn't take a photo for the internet. We took one for the fridge. I looked at their faces and felt something come back to me I thought was gone. My own outline. If you're waiting for a sermon, I don't have one. I have a suggestion. Write what you want in a notebook before you go to war. Outcomes, not punishments. Then do the boring things that make the loud things honest. Forms, signatures, calendars, chairs that don't tip over when people get upset. Most of all, don't let anyone convince you that love equals permission to vanish. Love is a room where the truth fits. That's the whole story. No title, no epilogue. Just this. A man stopped pretending. A boy learned new words. A family changed shape without exploding. And silence found other work to do.